Be able to send it out. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on the 5 mistakes that parents can make in IEP meetings. My name is Paige Fitzgerald. I'm going to let Kate take us away.
Hello, everybody. I am Kate McGaldy. I'm so happy to see a lot of familiar faces on here. Today, we're going to be talking about, as Paige said, the 5 IEP meeting mistakes that we can avoid and just make you super successful leading the way for your child. We are Kate and Paige. We are special education teachers that help families navigate special education in a way that feels clear, honest, and doable. You do not need to become an expert in law to be an advocate for your child. You do not need to learn 50 pages of jargon either. What you need is clarity, confidence, and a simple framework for making these decisions. Our purpose of today's meeting is to not give you the how. Today we're not going to dive into like legal codes and overwhelm you with things. We're going to focus on what gets in the way, what patterns show up the most for parents. We have a lot of conversations with parents, and we're just finding particular patterns that we're noticing on a daily basis. So we're going to share that with you. And we're going to talk about what shifts that will help families walk into meetings and feel that much more confident. Um, the agenda for today, we're going to talk about 5 mistakes that parents make. And it's not because you're doing anything wrong per se, it's because no one teaches you what to look for. As we go through each one, I want you to really listen to those moments and think, oh, yeah, yeah, that's me. Oh, that's happened to me before. Because the point for you is to feel seen and not judged. So I just want you to kind of do some self-reflection as you're hearing us go through the mistakes. After we walk through the 5 mistakes, we're going to introduce 3 advocacy pillars. These are the foundations that parents use to stop repeating similar patterns and make themselves equal part of the advocacy team. And at the end, we're going to share something really exciting. We are sharing a special bonus for anyone that signs up for support. And of course, we're going to have a question and answer session at the end of the session. So let's get started. And we're really excited that you're here. Go ahead, Paige.
Okay. All right, so I'm just gonna do just like a little tiny tweak. Just that we are former special education teachers and current special education advocates, but we really do feel like the teaching part of our background really brings like a special sauce to our meetings because we have the perspective as someone who sat across from the IEP table, as well as being parents of children who have IEPs. So, all right. If we can go straight into slide number 1. Okay. So mistake number 1 is the importance of reviewing evaluations and drafts. So this mistake can show up in a couple of different ways. Sometimes it's not asking for a draft of the IEP. Some schools are really great about sending out drafts without the parents asking. Some states are mandated to do this, some states are not. Some states in their districts, they might look like they don't actually make drafts of IEPs, but it's always helpful to ask for the draft if you have not received one. Why? Because this gives you an idea of what they're going to be proposing. Same thing with evaluations. Most schools will send you the evals beforehand. Usually they'll send them 3 to 5 days beforehand. But if you're not seeing these evaluations and it's a week out, it's okay to ask for them and just say, "Hi, I'm still waiting on reviewing this. I'd really like to make sure that I can see his or her evaluations and any drafts beforehand." And this is because we always say, and you are entitled to be a full member of your child's IEP team. And the only way that you can really do that is if you have the same information as everybody else in the room when you're at that meeting. And a lot of parents don't realize that they can ask for these things, that they don't just have to wait for the meeting and be kind of surprised. So that's the first mistake. And let's talk about the second mistake.
Excuse me. Mistake number 2 is sharing your concerns effectively. So this is something that we really feel strongly about. Sharing concerns effectively I want every parent to listen really closely right now. It needs to be in writing. Parents share concerns verbally because it's natural, right? Like we see teachers outside of school, we might see them in passing, we might see the principal, and it's a lot of this. You are not going to get things formally listened to unless it's something in writing. Um, so, like I said before, sometimes you talk, the team listens. In everyday life, that necessarily works, but in IEP process, verbal comments and conversations tend to disappear. I can't tell you how many times that Paige and I have shared with people that they need to request an evaluation, and then they just kind of get brushed aside. And then further questioning will say, well, did you put it in writing? And they did not do so. And as soon as they put it in writing, the meeting was held within a week. So it's really necessary that you put all your stuff in writing. Not only does it hold the school and yourself accountable, but it keeps a paper trail of things. Um, so if it is not in writing, there's no guarantee that it becomes part of the plan.
Yeah, and just to jump in, what that can look like during the IEP meeting could be asking it to be written down in the parent concern section of your child's IEP, because that should be a section in their IEP. So if you're talking about something that is concerning to you that you're bringing up, you can make sure that it's noted in the parent concern section, and then hopefully you're going to have something there that says, we address this concern by doing X, Y, Z, or we will be addressing this concern by doing X, Y, Z. So outside of the meeting, when you're talking about your concerns or when you have questions, it's writing the emails to them. Inside of a meeting, it's making sure that it's being put into the parent concerns. And then because, we want to assume that they're putting it into the parent concerns, but to follow up, it looks like after the meeting, writing a thank you so much for your time, and then going over what you discussed in that meeting and having that paper trail there of you once again, you're writing now your own parent concerns and what they said they would do to address it after the meeting. So you're kind of doubling down because we've seen it many times where things were addressed. We asked for them to be in the parent concerns, and then lo and behold, it's missing from the final document. So you want to really double down on making sure that they're writing it down and you're also writing it down.
And like we said at the start of this webinar, is why do parents do some of these things? It's like a pattern of behavior, and it's also things that you haven't been taught how to do this correctly. So why do parents tend to talk verbally versus writing things down? Is because if you put it in writing, it's like super formal and it can be maybe confrontational in your opinion. You don't want the school to think that you maybe are questioning what their actions are. You want to preserve the relationships, like if a teacher keeps saying, oh no, like, Johnny's fine, Johnny's fine, and then you put it in writing, it's like, well, you're contradicting what they were saying. You're making a formal ask. um don't worry about saying something wrong. It can be very simple in a write-up. It could just be as simple as I'm requesting formal comprehensive evaluations, period. Um, and I mean, there could be more to it, but it does not need to be extensive. Um,
Yeah, you don't have to have a law degree to write the
oh,
email. If you get something a little bit, the word, they'll know what you mean.
yeah,
And if they don't, they can always ask for clarity, and that's a quick email back of,
yeah,
oh, did you mean this? And either you did or you didn't. So, yeah, don't feel like you have to know everything either before you're sending the email. That's
yeah,
okay.
yeah. The reality is that writing concerns is not a conflict, it's clarity. Like Paige just said, and somebody once told me, and I've said this in a couple of my Instagram posts, but clarity is communication is clarity. So never feel like you can't ask questions because you're just going to get clearer and clearer with what your expectations and asks are. Um, Once parents see writing as a tool instead of a threat, everything changes. So just as soon as you get that first verbal request out, you're going to see that it's just a very natural back and forth conversation with the school. Meetings are scheduled in a timely manner. You have timelines for things, and everything just kind of like falls in line with how they should. So hopefully that's some encouragement. Put things in writing, and you're going to see things just kind of like lay out beautifully in front of you.
Yeah, and just one more thing with that of, it's creating that paper trail too. We always hope that you will have a wonderful relationship with your child's school and that everything's going to be collaborative. They're going to do the things that they say they're going to do. Your child will thrive with their IEP. But on the off chance that it doesn't, you want to have a paper trail showing, things that were promised, things that were said, what you were doing as a parent. Um, because sometimes, unfortunately, things do go south, and you do want to have proof that these were the things that you talked about, you agreed about. So mistake number two can be a small mistake, it can be a big mistake. We write everything down. Um,
All right, moving into mistake number three, which is one of my biggest pet peeves, and I want to teach parents how to what they know and what they should be able to understand. Go ahead.
Accepting the vague explanation. So this is a big one. And sometimes teachers don't necessarily do it intentionally all the time. Some of them probably do. But this comes with having that casual conversation, right? Of when you're asking how your child is doing and they're saying, they're doing great. They're doing fine. Oh my gosh, Timmy, the best. And then a month later, you get a letter saying, they're failing and things have escalated with their behavior. And you're like, wait a minute, but I just heard last month that they were doing fine. So what are you talking about? So when you're asking how your child is doing, you also want to be seeing, any data that they're taking. This could look like, their classwork, right? Like how are they doing in classwork if they've had trouble completing classwork in the past? How are they improving upon that? How many times out of how many times are they able to attend and complete the work if that's the support that they were getting? Same thing with whether they have supports for behaviors, that they have behavior goals, any academic goals. You might be getting progress reports every 9 weeks or so. For some parents, they don't get those progress reports. Maybe you're just having it at the parent-teacher conferences. But either way, if you're asking for those updates on how your child is doing, you can ask like, "Oh, that's so great that he seems to be doing fine. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?" Like you can be the detective and ask those questions to get as specific as you can. Um,
And no question is wrong too.
yeah.
I say it's similar to what I recommend like new parents when they go into a pediatrician office, like, oh, I'm afraid to ask. Like, I'm not too sure I want to ask that question. They're gonna think I'm dumb. No question is wrong. Like you, again, like you want to continue to ask and have communication with people because you want clarity on things. You want to know like what is exactly going on. Never feel intimidated to ask the questions.
Yeah, and the people that are working with your children most likely have advanced degrees in education. And so what makes sense like automatically for them that they just feel like, oh, I don't need to explain that. You're walking in as a parent that maybe education is not your background. So of course you're going to have questions and every teacher that I have spoken to, like in my son's school, other schools are different, but they're like, oh, hey, we love hearing parent questions and we love explaining things. So I just look at it as like, ask away because you know what? They have advanced degrees in this, you do not. And like the expectation is that you probably don't have it and ask all the questions that you want to. Most teachers will be, most teachers will be happy to answer them all.
Right, right. Okay, mistake number four. Did it go? No? Here we go. Mistake number four is coming in empty-handed to your meeting. Parents show up empty-handed because no one ever taught them to do anything other than that. You're going to assume that the school will lead the agenda. Paige said it in her first mistake. She said, "You are an active participant of that meeting. The school does not necessarily control the agenda. You are an active participant. You want to go in with lead questions and your own agenda that you're the questions that you want answered. So it is a collaborative approach. Um, Parents have information the schools do not see. Don't forget that. Like you're the parent. You know your child best out of everybody there. I remember even going to my own children's school and one teacher in particular, I said, how's he doing? And she said, oh, he's doing really well. And like my gut was like, you have no idea how my child is socially. My child is actually coming home left and right saying that they're concerned about this kid and that kid and that they're not being kind to him. And you know your child the best. You know your child well. So don't forget that. You see what happens at home with the homework struggles, with emotional patterns, with your routine, with your executive functioning issues. You know what your child looks like when they come home from school. So sharing that information, sharing private evaluations that maybe you have done in the past, sharing concerns that you've talked about with your pediatrician. All those things are pertinent to conversations with the school. Without those pieces, you are the decisions that are at the table that are going to be made at that IEP table are only going to be from the school's perspective. So make sure you give everything.
Yeah,
Uh,
and if you are if you're giving, outside evaluations, doctor's notes, things like that, even the parent agenda, you do want to try to send that ahead of the meeting rather than bring it the day of. I mean, bring it the day of as well, of course, but you want to give them time to read it. With outside evaluations and all those things, they have to consider them. They don't necessarily have to consider them with the same weight that they would consider in-house evaluations. But if you give them more time, they can look through it. You're giving them kind of a heads up of like, this is, what I have. And the parent agenda, I mean, can't recommend it enough, especially if there are some real concerns that you're having that you want to make sure are being addressed. Even the tiniest little things where like, and I just have a question about this. Like it's not even a big concern, but I just have a question because I'm a little bit unclear. Write that in the parent agenda so that you don't forget it. So that 5 months later, like, I never did get that question answered, but I still wonder. Um,
Parents,
and
go ahead, Paige. Sorry.
no, I was just gonna say, and like I know this lady looks overwhelmed with all of her papers, but sometimes even just bringing a notebook with
Mhm.
you, right? If you're like, I don't know the questions that I have, just take some notes. I bet you're gonna have some questions when you're listening. And that way also you can write down the concerns that maybe pop up for you there and what was discussed, and you can match your notes with the record.
Yeah, I always say come in with a couple of questions handy because it shows that you're going to be an active participant. You're coming in with your own agenda. But so often parents get to the meeting and they just kind of blank out like, oh my God, well, totally forgot to ask such and such when I was in my meeting. So you don't want to be overwhelmed going into it. So have your notes, have your agenda written ahead of time. Take notes as people are speaking. I have a book that I literally every single meeting that I ever have, I just take notes on so I can refer back to them. Again, it's a paper trail. All of those things are super important. But the most important thing out of this is that we want you to come in to this meeting with evidence yourself to support your child and to show where your child might be struggling or doing really well. Like let's talk about those accolades of where you're noticing significant progress at home. You want to be an active participant in your meeting, not a passive one, because you want the team to be very balanced. Okay, so it is a collaborative effort to make sure that your child is on the right path.
I'm just thinking of one client in particular who we have where she's the most organized person that I've ever met in my life. She's fantastic. And she has every single record from his early intervention. And she brings it with her to every meeting. Now, I'm not saying that you do that. That is her system and that works for her. But like if you are the type where you forgot to bring everything, guess what? This works really well too, taking notes on your phone. Um, you could ask to record the meeting. That is going to really depend on the state that you're in, the district that you're in, when you're asking to record the meeting. But in a pinch, you can just say, hey, everyone, I don't have anything to write with. I'm just going to type out some notes on my phone as we're talking. And that works too, because usually you'll forget a pen and paper, but you usually don't forget your phone. So,
Very true. All right, last but not least, mistake number 5. Go ahead, Paige.
okay. So thinking you can only agree or disagree. And this is actually a mistake that not only parents make, but districts sometimes make as well, thinking that there's only a yes or a no to this request. And the truth is that there's a yes, there's a no, and there's a no, but, right? So there is a we won't do that, but there's still some wiggle room for like what can we do? So that's that collaboration, that's that problem solving. And sometimes you're feeling like it's a yes or no because the district shuts it down so firmly.
Mhm.
We can't do that. We don't do that here. But your concerns are still there. And that's when you're going to say, okay, I'm hearing you say that this is something that you can't do. And let's assume it's something that they genuinely can't do, not something that they're being sketchy about, just for the sake of simplicity. If it's something that they really can't do, well, then we agree that this is a need that my child has. What can we do? What does a support look like that's appropriate for my child? That's also a realistic thing to implement. So it can feel really just like disheartening when you hear a no, but there's always the possibility of a no, but. So if that's not a possibility, or maybe they don't necessarily qualify for that, but there's still a need, what does support look like from there?
Right. And I also want to say that the truth is also that IEP decisions rarely need to be made in the moment. And I think this is also something that parents are assuming is that when you get an invitation to an IEP meeting and you're there and it says scheduled for an hour, they can go longer. They can be paused and continue the next day. You can be at that meeting and request to see more data before you make any decisions. Again, it's a conversation back and forth. It is not something that needs to be done within that hour and rushed and feel like your voice was not heard and the decision was not yours. You are an active participant. Um,
Yeah, and sometimes schools can try to make it seem like it's pressurized, right? Like there's a like you have to decide now, but that's just most of the time that is not the case. I can think of some very rare time sensitive things, but that is not the case.
yeah. Yep. Okay. Next, we are going to talk about the advocacy pillars, and these three pillars are what Paige and I really believe are, the reason behind being like the most efficient and effective advocate going into your child's meeting. Okay, so the first one is clarity. I like that picture that I found. It was like, you know what? Like
Peaceful.
that it's peaceful. You're right. You need a clear picture of what's happening academically and socially, emotionally. You don't need the vague phrases. I'm fine, they're fine. You don't want to hear that. You want clarity. Ask those questions to get that clarity. Do not have assumptions. Do not listen to things, or you can listen to it, but then ask for evidence. Listen to, teachers or caseworkers talking about like the emotional value to something. Like, oh, it looked like they were really frustrated. Well, why? How? What data did you show to prove that? Um, so when you're asking a lot of questions, it stops the pattern of accepting the vague explanations of things and coming in empty-handed on both sides.
Yeah, and just ask yourself if you can agree with the statement that I understand how my child is doing in school. I understand their needs, and I understand the services and support that they're currently getting to meet those needs. If
Mhm.
you can say yes to that, then
Yeah.
you've got clarity. If you're like maybe one of those, like, or maybe none of those, then that's something that needs to be built up for you.
Communication. I mean, we've talked about this a bunch.
Mhm.
Communication is not about sending these legal emails, very long emails. It's literally just sending or putting something in writing. Could be a simple sentence. It's about learning how to communicate in a way that it creates accountability for the entire team. It creates a shared understanding of things. Communication stops a pattern of sharing concerns verbally when you're putting it in writing. And, your goal is to not lose things along the way. You want to have a paper trail so that you can refer back to, and just that, the written communication just makes things very clear. And again, continue. If you're not clear, you don't have that clarity, even in your communication, your written communication, then you got to keep going, keep asking those questions.
Yeah, and once again, like a question that you can ask here for yourself for clarity on if you have good communication with the school is, when was the last time I heard about how my child is doing?
Yeah.
Or the last time I reached out to my child's school, did I get a really great answer, or did I get crickets, or did I get like some kind of weird non-answer that sounded like a politician wrote it? Um, so that
Did
would
I
be a
get,
way to, mhm.
did I understand my child's progress report for their
Yeah,
IEP?
yeah,
Get that.
yeah, that's a good question.
Those are all good ones. And last but not least, I mean, this is our main goal for anybody that's listening. We just want you to be super confident going into your meeting. We want you to know your rights, know your role in your meeting, that you're a collaborative team member, and we just want you to know your child best. Confidence is what allows you to say, I need more information. I'm not sure. Show me the data to support that. Because when you show that confidence and that empowerment, you're showing that you are best advocating for your child. Um, so, in a nutshell, these are the three pillars for advocacy that we thought were most important. It helps give structure, grounding, and a sense of peace, hopefully. They help you participate as an equal team member instead of feeling like a guest in the room. And, you are very capable of being the best support for your child.
Absolutely, 100% agree.
Okay.
All right, we've got a special bonus offer to everyone who is here live with us, as well as everyone who will watch the replay within the next 24 hours. Um, so let's say if we ended around 1, let's say this is good until 1 p.m. tomorrow Eastern Standard Time, my time zone, guys. So here's what we're offering for everyone who signed up for this webinar with us. It is a 1 hour IEP review session, which is where we go over your child's most recent IEP that they have. And then you have an entire hour-long session with us to really talk through any concerns that you have about their IEP, about things that are happening during the school year, maybe how they're are or are not being supported, and if you have another IEP meeting coming up, what that might look like in a change of supports. So usually the typical value of this would be $350, but we're doing a 24-hour special bonus offer of $200, and that is us reviewing this IEP beforehand, and then you get an hour of our time. You can just ask us anything you want to ask us. It's such a high value that we're really excited about it. 'Tis the season, guys. Um,
Forgiving and supporting each other.
yeah, and this is really for a lot of students, this is the time of year where like the wheels have kind of fallen off the bus. If they're having some problems, September, October, sometimes kids are still acclimating, and usually by like November, December, the real cracks are beginning to show. And for a lot of parents, you're like, what just happened? Like, what is going wrong? I need the support. So if you feel like you just need to talk through this with someone and you want someone to just look at your child's IEP and see like, is this enough for them? Is this like the right thing? Is something needing to be changed? Then this is the package for you. Um, Kate is going to drop a link in the chat now, but she's also going to send out a link, a follow-up link. We'll both send that out for everyone that's registered. That's going to have that same 1 p.m. timeline. The 1 p.m. deadline for the offer in there as well. So if you're watching the replay within 24 hours, then it's okay. You are still in that window. Outside of that, I'm so sorry. But we'd still love to work with you as well because we also have a couple of different package options for support, whether that's one time or year long, and we'd love to support in any way that we can.
That's right. Okay. Last but not least, we had some questions that people did reach out to beforehand that we can answer. One of the questions was, what happens if the school does not send a draft? Paige, I'm gonna let you take that one because you just addressed it recently with somebody. What happens if
Sure.
not?
So this is a question that is super particular to where you are in the United States. So I'm going to kind of address it in two different ways. Um, if your district is telling you that they don't do drafts, you can first check with like your state statutes, like the requirements of whether your state is or is not required to send a draft. For many states, it's just a best practice, which means the state highly encourages districts to do it, but they don't actually have them like legally obligated to do it. Now, for other states, they are required to do it. And usually if they're required to do it, they have a very streamlined process. So the chances are if you're in a district and they haven't sent you a draft, they're probably not mandated to do it, but most districts will still do it. So always ask for the draft. And if they're saying, we don't do this, it's not our policy to send a draft beforehand, you can still ask for whatever specifics that you were hoping to. So they can't genuinely give you like service hours. I'm so sorry. So I'm gonna let you take it.
All right, she's recovering from sickness over there. The other question that we got was, what is the best way to prepare for my next meeting? I hope that we answered it to the best of our ability. But just a reminder that the best way to prepare for your next meeting is to come super prepared. Write down questions beforehand, read through your child's IEP, have a question and answer session with us, have us review your IEP with you, so that you feel super confident going in, but really just be prepared with questions so that you are an active team member the day of.
I'm so sorry, guys. Getting over the flu, as you can see, and my throat just decided to like, hmm,
Go into a coughing spasm.
really feel, yeah, getting a coughing fit. I think I finished my thought. I was just like, oh gosh, my
And
throat.
I answered the next one. And then the next question was, what do I do if the team says no to something that I ask for?
So I think that's something that we covered a little bit in the yes, no, or no, but section. But I think one of the biggest things is to just like take a pause
Yeah.
and don't be discouraged, especially if they shut it down in a way that seems really aggressive.
Mhm.
Um, and if you
Data.
feel,
Asking for data is always going to be important. So if they say no, like where's the data that's supporting that? Why is it that? Hopefully their response is not going to be because of budget restraint constraints or our school just doesn't do that because it's a whole other conversation.
yeah, well, and the best thing to say for when you say, like we don't do that here, this isn't something that we do, is to say, okay, so what I'm hearing is you saying that, you can't do that or it's not what the school does. Can you please point to where in your school or district's policy it says that you can't do that
Yeah.
or that you don't do that? Because chances are, it's not going to say it anywhere
Yeah.
that they can't or don't do that. And then that also opens up the conversation in a different way of, okay, like this parent knows a little bit about their rights. So if it's just something that you typically don't do, it's very different from something that's written in your policy that you can't do it.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah. And then also if you feel really tongue-tied in the meeting when you're getting shut down, because not all of us know how to handle when you have 5 or 6 people across from you and they're like, nope, not doing it. Sometimes we lose our train of thought, right? We lose the words that we want to say. It's okay to revisit it at another time too. If, you took a day to think about it and you're like, it just still doesn't sit right with me that there's no support to be done there. I want to explore more options. And maybe that's you talking to an advocate. Maybe that's you talking to like a trusted friend who's a public school teacher or a SLP and getting advice and then saying, I've I've been sitting with this for a little bit and I think we need to revisit this.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, One of the questions is, what does working with you look like? I think the best way I mean, we support families in so many different capacities. We have services that support families for one entire year. We have services that help parents for just 6 months or even just one particular meeting. It's best that we have a conversation, schedule a call with us. We'd be happy to jump on board and to talk a little bit more about your needs. Any more questions, Paige?
Um, just to piggyback off of that one, what it looks like to work with us, I think it's also important to know that, we have a very supportive and collaborative style. Our goal is that you feel empowered to make decisions for your child. We, as past educators, we educate along the way when we're working with families to what their rights are, what these services look like. And some parents, one of the things that they hesitate for working with any advocate is because they're worried that it's going to come off as like combative for the school and that it's going to change the dynamic in a really bad way. Like I don't want the school to think that, you know, I'm mad at them or I'm being
Yeah,
aggressive to
making
them.
it
And
possible.
really a good advocate comes in and just changes the atmosphere in a positive way
Yes.
of just it's very collaborative and the schools that we've worked with, I would say the majority, we end off on really, really great notes where we're like, we're not even needed anymore. You guys are on an even playing field now. The parents' needs are being heard and respected. The child's on a good path. Um, and yeah, I think that that is something that is a real fear for parents, that it's going to just drive this maybe already tense relationship just downhill by bringing someone else into it. And it's just a very I think it's very different in a positive way than
Yeah.
what some parents are expecting it to be.
And typically you get two of us on one meeting. So,
Yeah.
you get both of us for the price of one.
Yes.
Uh, Anyways, all right, let's close off. We're just really happy that you were here today. You showed up. Why? Because you care about your child and you want clarity from the process that otherwise feels super confusing. So don't you don't have to do this alone. That's something that you have to be aware of. If you want support, please take advantage of that special bonus because it's something that we only give out at special times throughout the year. And I think we've given it out maybe once this year, twice, maybe. So we're looking forward to having those calls with you and to review your child's IEP and just, have you and ask any questions that you may have within our time together. You have 24 hours to sign up, so take advantage of that. And anything else, Paige?
I think that nails it. If you watch this and you're like, "Ooh, I've got some questions," you can absolutely email us your questions.
Clarity.
Yeah,
Communication. It's all about reaching out to us, and we're going to help you with that.
yeah. And if this really resonated with you, like he was saying, we've got that amazing offer for 24 hours where we can go over all of your child's concerns. Especially if the questions that you have are very child specific, that would fall into our special. So take advantage of it. We're excited to help as many kids as we can and to close out our year with as many parents feeling like I'm ready for 2026 in my child's school year as they possibly can be. So thank you all for taking the time out, and we appreciate you being here.
Take care.